All right, good evening, everyone. So I had tried to start this last week with a short video on phase four, and unfortunately, I had a bunch of stuff I had to take care of, and I ended up having to go kind of short. So I want to touch on a bunch more stuff that's coming. Also, for anybody interested, the plan right now is phase four will actually launch tomorrow morning. I'm just putting the finishing touches. This video is going to be part of the top of the site, just for people who maybe missed the live event, just to kind of go through this as a help video. But plan right now is tomorrow morning I will have the phase four launch, and I'll announce it obviously everywhere. I'll let everybody know, and I'll have a link in the description for this video just in case you come upon this after being live. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. We probably should be able to go about an hour tonight, unless obviously family jumps in. But that's the rough plan. So I did cover some stuff last week, like I said, but I felt like it was rushed. I felt like I didn't get to really show it or answer questions. So I'm going to kind of recap some of that stuff, show some other stuff, kind of explain everything. So if you any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And also, if anybody's on, hopefully audio is working. I know I had some technical difficulties last week. So if you're not hearing me and you're seeing my lips move, just drop that in the chat too, so we can get that fixed. But that being said, actually, you don't need me anymore. Let me get to the library. So there's so much added in phase four that I'm not going to be able to cover it all. The rough plan is to kind of give a demo of how things work, how to use the new features, where to find the controls, etc. And then really just let everybody go and play. And I opened this up for anybody, even if you don't have a Proffieboard. Just if you want to check things out, you want to take a test drive of what Proffieboard's able to do, you want to just kind of even just pass the time designing some cool effects for lightsabers. The library is open for everybody to play with. So the very first library was tied to our color change fork that I did with SA22C, probably what, 3 years ago. It's been a while. And that one was kind of just to be a central location for everybody to easily get pre-built style, particularly back when we were talking the was it 2.6 cc fork, because those styles were quite large and it took a lot of time to build them. And over the course of these years, as the OS has changed, I've been building libraries, et cetera. And one of the things that keeps coming up that I get questions about, that I see people doing, it's just trying to make small tweaks to the styles. So like there's a style they really like, but they want to, the colors aren't perfect. They want to change the color. They want to change, in some cases they want to change how the effects work. They want to maybe flip things around, change out the ignition effect, change out preons, change out blast. So over time, I've made it so that the library can adapt to that. And now with this phase four push, I actually made it so the customization is pretty much unlimited. And what's going to be at the phase four launch versus what's coming is going to be just a small sample, because there's a lot more coming. I had to get the interfaces built. I had to actually change how the style code gets built, so that we can do this. But now that I've got the framework in place, I'm going to be able to add a lot more stuff. And as I mentioned last week, and also the video I put up yesterday, I'm also going to be putting interactive capabilities into style building so that you can kind of mix and match, pick and choose, and actually build more. So been rambling for a little bit here. I don't see anybody in the chat just yet, but I'm going to go forward with the assumption that the audio is working. If anybody joins in and is just looking at a quiet screen, please just let me know. Hopefully I'm not passing these minutes by without being heard. All right. So one of the big things is originally we with phase three, I launched the dual phase and split blade builder, and that's kind of been growing. But because of how that works, I've actually now made it so that that actually is an entry point to a lot of customization. And the customization is going to be carried through in a lot of places, but we're going to start there. I've moved the dual phase builder. I've renamed it to just build a style or style builder. And it's going to be right at the top now. And you can, of course, still pick any of the blade types you want. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Proffieboard, these buttons really, all the code is actually identical. You can use code that you build for a main blade on a crystal chamber. You can use code that you build for an accent on your main blade. It's all basically just interchangeable. The reason for these individual buttons is more to help tailor the options, because they're just in the course of building sabers. You're going to have certain effects that you want to appear certain ways on the main blade, and then other effects that you want to have appear differently on your crystal chamber, your accents, etc. So all these buttons are is really just tailoring the options. They're not, you're not forced to use like a crystal chamber code only on crystal chambers. It's all interchangeable with Proffie. And as you get, used to playing with the stuff. Oh, I got some chats. Hey, Daniel, thanks for joining. All right, good. I'm not talking to thin air. Hey, Chet, thanks for joining. Yeah, last week I think I went a couple minutes without the audio actually turned on, so I figured try to avoid that this week. But so that being said, I'm going to start in this new blade builder. So it is the dual phase and split blade builder, but now I've added so many more options to it. And we'll use main blade. And again, I did show some of this last week, but I'm going to kind of start fresh just because last week was really truncated. So the within here, then this list is going to grow. If you want to build your dual phase, you can. The new interactive stuff that I showed yesterday is going to be in here. So we've got the clash instability, the new path to the dark side, which is similar. I'll walk through those. Kinetic swing, all the color shifting options, and actually there's more. Color blending, split blade, which is we've had for a while, the mirror blades, the vortex blades, and then these twin suns, which I don't think I actually got to show any of those. They're kind of unique and custom. And then I've also made it so you can actually just build a single style. Now, you can do a lot of this same stuff, and actually you can do a few other things through the individual styles, which we'll show next. But for our purposes, let's go with one of the, we'll start with the clash instability, because this was one of the ones that I had shown yesterday. So you can build anything you want. And that's the real goal here is that instead of being forced, I mean, I have a ton of ideas that I want to build out and I'm still going to build them. But transferring all of my ideas into the code takes time. And there's so much possible that, I don't want to just be the one that kind of has to get everything out. So the idea here is to actually impart some of my knowledge and some of my style design for the codes into this style builder so that it can be used by others very simply. So you don't have to actually know the code. You don't have to actually know what the style combinations, effect combinations you have to put together to get this. You can actually just generate it with the drop downs. And of course, if you want to go and learn it, you're welcome to, but this is to make it easier. So basically the clash instability, a lot of them are going to function similarly for this is an interactive one. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick your starting point. You can pick your colors. As I noted, we did add the custom capabilities. So custom now lets you pick any RGB value. And this is going to be for all your blade effects. So this is for the base color, your alt color, all your blast lockups, everything can now use custom colors. And that was a big lift to make it possible, but it actually opened the doors for a lot of other stuff. These are just your defaults. So that's the other piece of it. Technically, you've been able to do every custom color possible through edit mode or Proffieboard Workbench. But now this lets you set it up as default. But technically, if you already have OS6 styles on your Saber and they have edit mode or you have the workbench hooked up, you could technically pick any of these colors anyway. Some of the other stuff hasn't been available yet because it's brand new. But you can actually come in and now use your custom colors. So it's going to be just a straight up RGB picker. You can put in your RGB values if you know them, or you can of course use the slider and pick specific colors. And then when you click out, it's going to apply that color. And that's any RGB value. Technically, you can also do black. That's been a question that people have had. Now, one caveat with black, if for whatever reason you want to turn an effect black, you can. Just note, when you're in edit mode, if you are using the on the Saber edit mode, black basically tells the Saber to turn the lights off. So certain portions of color editing, if you go into the color editing menu and you go to edit that color that has been turned black, it's going to be the blade's going to be off, and you're going to have to basically go into the white level menu and add white so that it can start seeing that the blade should be turned on. Or color list, I think, would trigger it to do that. But just note that black as a solid 000 RGB value for Proffieboard tells it to tell in your Saber the lights off. So in edit mode, because of that, certain editing features turn off when that's there. So just a little note in case anybody happens to choose, like they want to do their blaster block in black, and then they go to edit blaster block, black turns the Saber off. So you may have no lights on it. You do have to apply some color for it to then recognize that the light should be on. But so custom colors, whatever you want. We also have, actually, I'll go through those second. So now this clash instability one, this is an interactive capability. For those who are new to library, this red bar here is going to tell you how the interactive controls work, so you can play with them up here. But let's finish building this out. So I'm going to keep a unstable rage, but I actually want to get, I'm just going to go into green for this, for the second color. So how this particular interactive capability works is if you do consecutive clashes or lockups, it's going to apply the second style. So what you're actually doing is this is your main style, and as you build up clash strength and lockups, essentially pick them up, it's going to start to apply this style in whatever percentage based on how hard you're hitting it. But unlike some of the other ones where there is a clash build-up function, there's a few other ones that are already built. This one, if you take a break from clashes, if you allow your saber to almost kind of reestablish itself, it will normalize. So what we'll do, clash strength is set about medium, so I'm going to do a couple clashes here. You'll see it's going to start to apply that second style. And as long as I'm clashing, it's going to keep it active. Now, if I stop clashing for a period of time, and it's approximately 5 seconds, it does have a build-up part of it. So if you do a ton of clashes in a row, it's technically will take a little bit longer because the range it has to move backwards is different. But that's basically the clash instability, and you can pick and choose any option. So if I instead wanted the saber to maybe start turning blue, and maybe I want to have a different effect happen when I'm clashing it. So let's get to, maybe we'll turn it into like a fire sparking. And then what'll happen now is all these clashes are going to build up. And I'm going to get that, oops, I highlighted stuff. And again, it's going to keep it as long as it's getting hit, as long as it's clashing. And then once it's allowed to settle itself back down, it will revert. Um, and lockups work the same. And this on your actual saber, it's actually going to read the clash string. So lighter hits will be a smaller change, really hard hits will be a larger change. So if you do like, I think if you do 3 really hard hits, you're going to max out at 100%. Whereas if you did like a dozen or so light hits, it'll max out. But it's really how much. So if you only hit a little bit, you'll see it'll only apply a little bit and then also won't last as long. And that's part of that interactive capability. But the idea is instead of me building one interactive style that I say, okay, here's your start effect, here's your clash effect for buildup, and then let you have to use that. Having it in this builder capability allows you to actually customize what you want to have happen. So you could have it go the other way. You could have an unstable blade that the clashes actually force it to stabilize. You can have a fire blade that picks up speed. You can do all of these things just by picking from this ever-growing list. And I actually added a bunch of stuff today. So there's a bunch of new styles in here to play with. But all these style capabilities, and there's going to be more coming, you can mix and match and add to them. And then on top of it, we also aren't stuck with just solid color anymore. So we can go and we can do like our gradients. So you can do a fixed gradient, and you can actually apply how much of that gradient appears. So that's how much the change of color is going to be over it. So if you wanted to have like a gradient blade, but then as you clash it up, it's going to start to switch into that more solid color blade. So and everything is all editable right here. So and you can preview it all. And then there's all these options. Just I would say just play with them because there's so many in here. One thing to note: color shifting. So color shifting lets you kind of pick 2 colors, and it's going to slide between those 2 colors. But it's really blending the mix of those 2 colors versus the new rainbow shifting, which actually covers the spectrum between. So if I go open the spectrum up, you'll see it'll do more of a rainbow color. So they're similar, particularly when you have them really tight with the shift and gradient amount. But as you get the gradient separated bigger, rainbow shift will be doing the full RGB spectrum versus color shift, which is actually going to be blending the 2 colors. So it's going to go in and out of whatever the 2 colors are at the most extreme. But everything is editable. So the speed of it, so how quickly it's doing that shift. If you wanted to be really crazy with it, you can have it doing that. You can tighten up the gradient so it's not quite so noticeable. If you wanted to have, like even in some of the films, the saber color tweaks a little bit between scenes. So if you had like, you wanted to take 2 scenes and blend them together, you can do that with color shifting. And then we've got obviously our other capabilities of having Omni Color, which basically does all colors. You can have the rolling rainbow. So this just gives you a rainbow effect on this style, but you can have all of this mix and match and built in and build out these custom styles and then have these interactive capabilities. Oh, there's some more chat. Sorry, I was too busy talking. Hey, Tikita, thanks. Oh, Danny, I have a question I want to ask. Possible to avoid very different aggressive swings and clashes. I'm not sure how we would. So let me show it. Um, I'm not sure how. I mean, there may be a way. It wouldn't be in this current OS. That would probably have to be a future build. We could. Top of my head, it'd take a lot of testing. There might be a way to have like a. So it would be in the prop, and you probably have to know what happened right before the clash. So, like if your saber was sitting still, maybe, and then a clash happened, you can maybe record that one way versus if the saber was moving, so swinging prior to the clash. It seems technically possible, but the coding might be tricky. And the and getting it and then figuring out what to do with it after you've so the first piece would be figuring out how we differentiate them, but then the secondly is what happens when you differentiate them and how that gets applied. Because the other piece of the puzzle for that is your effects and your sounds. They're usually chosen at the moment of impact, so you'd have to do a whole bunch of uh, functions ahead of that to have it ready to go. I'm not going to say impossible, but the how and the coding needed probably be a future addition. And it could get tricky to the point where you have it could if you really made them different, like it might not always generate what you want. So it'd be something that you'd have to test. But not a terrible idea. The way stuff's advancing too, it's not the future updates might be possible. I did a lot in battle mode 2.0 to just get to the point where we can actually differentiate the clashes and lockups based on strength. So it does take a good chunk of time to make that stuff happen. But with how much the technology is moving forward and the fact that we're able to because Frederick enhanced the motion detection and everything, we're actually able to get better readings more often. So that made a lot of that possible. So a lot of the real clash, the battle mode 2.0, all of that stuff became possible with the addition of the additional motion readings that made it so that we were getting more precise readings as well as a bigger range of clash readings versus before those. So like when we were the original engine of OS 5, it wasn't able to read that clash strength uh, uh, accurately enough to make stuff happen. So Frederick actually went in and it changed a bunch of the motion code and made it possible, and that's why we have all that. So it's the advances that happen with each OS make new stuff possible. So good idea. A possible future update. You could probably maybe even throw it in. I know Frederick has an OS 7 uh, Q&A section on the Crucible. I'm still working on a ton of OS 6 stuff, so I haven't done much with OS 7, but I know OS 7 will have even more. But all right, let me get back at this. Let me walk through these other ones, and I'm going to change this. I want to get this back to just a normal color for us to start with. So then the other new interactive ones that I add, so Path to the Dark Side. So let's make this actually like a real Path to the Dark Side. Let's get to a Sith red. Let's get a new color. Let's get custom like a cyanish color. So the path to the dark side is similar to the. Oh, hey Brian, thanks for joining. So I'm just walking through some of the new capabilities. If you have questions as I go, feel free to chime in. So as I did note at the top, I have more time. I ran out of time last week. I had some stuff I had to take care of by a certain time for the family. But I have time tonight. So this second one, the interactive path to the dark side, the idea here is similar to that the clash instability one, in that every clash, every lockup is going to build up between style 1 to style 2. But this one has the idea being that it actually wants you to almost like a Jedi calm yourself. And in terms of calm yourself, it'd be to steady your saber. So this one also uses the swing ability. So when the saber is swinging, so even if you're not clashing, if you build up dark side in this case, which we'll show in a second, and you're still swinging away aggressively, it's not going to allow itself to revert. And this is kind of a compound interactive style. So the idea here is, we get some clashes going. I'm going to build it up. I could do, my lockup. And then again, it's based on the strength. So if I clash it harder, and that's what these controls are for. Oops, I didn't do it. Build it up quick enough. I was talking too long. So then it's going to keep itself for as long as the swing is happening. And it's based on aggressive swings. That's right. I would have had to keep pressing the swing button. That's what that is. But it basically, it showed better in the video. This previewer does have some limitations, but so as long as you're swinging, it would keep itself in the unstable. And then when I stop swinging, that's the idea, is that it would actually allow me to calm myself, kind of meditate, and then it will revert back to whatever the original style was. So that's the main difference between the interactive Path to the Dark Side and the interactive Clash and Stability is just it keeps the registering. And again, it's based on really big swings. If you're just doing subtle swing movements, it's considering that as stable. And you could technically tweak it. Originally I was going to try to make some of the interactive controls a little bit more editable, but as a start point, the interface was getting too crazy. So as a start point, I chose what values worked best in my tests. But over time, I'll try to make it so that a little bit more of that stuff can be edited ahead of time. The interactive styles themselves, they are very complex. That's one of the reasons I decided to try to start making them so that they can be built in these type of viewers. I'm still going to build all the ones I have in my head separately as individual styles, but this is to let some of those interactive capabilities, particularly the ones that lend themselves to being interpreted in a lot of different ways, get applied however you want. And again, I called it, I give everything a name just so it has a point of reference, but also kind of that thought behind it. But how you use it is up to you. So you don't have to choose a red effect. You can have it build up based on clashes and lockups and almost be like as if you had an energy type saber that overuse actually gets itself either erratic or whatever, and then you have to stabilize it. If you go all the way back to like the original Halo game, like if you took too many shots, your shields would like go down, and then you'd have to go hide behind something and allow your shield to regenerate. You can do it kind of that way, and that's the concept, is that it's all however you want to build them, and mix and match them. And then the last one was the kinetic swing. So this one again, a lot of different uses. It's going to be similar. So this is kind of like a customizable shimmer blade. So that was one of the new styles that came out in OS6, the original one that I built. Actually, I had a lot of people who really like it, but they wanted to change up how it worked. So that's essentially the interactive kinetic swing works similarly to how the shimmer blade works. Technically, the hyper responsive rotoscopes do very similar things too. They just have them flipped. But what it does is allows you to actually swing and build up between the two. So we can now do custom colors. So let's get like a custom green. And then let's get something maybe with some more movement. For those of you joining late, I did add a bunch of new styles into both the drop downs, but also the library itself, just for us to be able to pick different things. So let's choose like a faster fire. And let's give that kind of we'll go custom on this too. We'll get a different type of green, maybe something a little brighter. Doesn't see how this looks. And then on this one, as you swing, and because of the controls, the easiest thing is to just keep clicking the swing button. It's going to build up, and as long as you're swinging, it's going to keep that second style. But then if you slow the blade down, it'll restore itself. And if you really want to see how that looks, you can actually get to really different colors and it'll stand out more. But it's really whatever colors and styles you want. And then that's the idea, is as it's building up energy, in this case, it's picking up kinetic energy. I have it going into a fire blade. But then as it slows down, it'll reestablish itself. And that's the idea, is pick two styles, pick any colors. If you wanted to go and you wanted to get like gradients and you wanted to maybe flip around how the gradients run. So actually we can apply a gradient wave on the swing. So like this is what I mean, is like the mixing and matching of what's going to be possible now turns into like infinite combinations. So versus just being able to like pick two styles and pick like two colors, you're picking two styles. You're picking how they interact with each other. You're picking custom colors. You're picking how to mix them in terms of gradients or color shifting or rainbow shifting or Omni Color or all these different options. And this list too will continue to grow. In terms of what you can actually do with the stuff. And you can technically layer in some of these buildup effects if you wanted to. I haven't tested, now that's the other pieces. I haven't tested every combination that's possible. So you might throw some crazy stuff together. It might not quite react how you want it to. Report it in the beta thread, which is linked at the top corner here when I close the screen. Everything should be running fine when this launches tomorrow. But again, there's now exponential number of unique combinations that you guys can put together. I did not test everything. I tested the concepts, I tested the individual code, but taking this piece and sticking it in this piece and sticking this piece here, there's going to be combinations that nobody ever thought of every time somebody touches this. But just that's the biggest thing is going to be once this launches, go in and play, design unique stuff that you want. And if you don't like how something looks, you can always change it up. Um, and then let's see, what else do we got here? So the other piece of this, like I said at the top, oh, hey, Mountain Sabers, thanks for joining. I'm sorry, guys, I've been too busy looking one way. I haven't seen the chat so much. Is this, for those who are joining late, just so I can keep everybody close up. The original dual phase split blade builder is now going to be kind of just a everything builder. The rest of the library still runs, and actually there's certain things you can only do in other parts of the library. But what I did here is because of all this customization, I wanted to make it even easier for people to get in and play with. And even people who aren't familiar with Proffie to be able to do some testing and just come in and play around with their free time and come up with some unique stuff. Now you can also build a single style. So the build a style is actually just a single style, but it's going to let you apply all these different customizations right in place. So if we wanted to like grab an erratic unstable, if I wanted to get like a custom kind of a purplish effect, and then if I wanted to maybe have it have a gradient, and I want to tighten that gradient a little bit, and then I don't like how it's moving, I can actually invert it. And again, all these options are going to keep changing. So I have a ton more stuff that's in the works that I have to add to this. So these drop downs are going to have more and more options as I add them to the library. I did add a bunch of new styles in here that you can play with. I added a bunch of other stuff, but the customization now is going to be really just whatever you think of, and go in and play around with it and see how it all works together. Um, and you're going to be able to design all this stuff however you want, and that's the real goal is true customization. You go in, you find stuff that you want for your saber, and nobody else is going to have it. If you really want to share it, you can obviously share everything, but the idea is to make it even easier to really just dial it in, find the color and the effect and the interactive or responsive capability or the gradient or the color shifting, the color blending, everything you want. Plus, and I haven't even touched on all the other features I've added in here. But let me go shift. I want to cover a couple more things, and then I'll see if there's any questions. There's too much to show. I know I'm not going to get to show everything today. But so that's the big pieces. A bunch more stuff in what used to be just the dual phase and split blade builder. It's now kind of an everything builder. Um, but we also obviously have all of our other styles. So one of the other big pieces. So let's find. Grab one of these guys. Let's do like the bandit leader. So another thing that came in um, that was requested um, is who's in Alex. The link to the Proffie manual on my site no longer works. Really? Oh, okay. I will check that out. I wonder if Dimitri put out a new version. I'll have to find the current link. I had linked to that a while ago, so that's entirely possible. I'll take a look at it and try to get that updated. If you do a Google search, though, usually it comes up anyway. I was just trying to make it easy, but I'll see if I can get that fixed. Um, sorry about that. I think I may or may not have touched on it. So if we put together style options, which we've covered in previous videos, previously you weren't able to preview anything except for the first one. Now you can actually see your different options here. This style option is preview only. It's just to let you see the styles you've chosen, and it's going to highlight them in red. They're still going to stay in the order being default 0. How you actually change style options and all the other options, so ignition, pre-on, all that stuff, is either through edit mode or Proffios Workbench. But for preview purposes, if you built out like a large option style and you wanted to see the individual pieces, that's what these drop downs now do, is they give you a preview so you can see. So like if you're building out different effects, you can actually see. And in this case here, because they're so similar, they're not showing that differently. Let's do like Am and the Village Bride, and then we'll put the Ronin back in, and let's just finish it out so we can go here. So now I can see what these different options look like as I'm building everything else. So this would be, if I want to pick my color. Now the twins, the the Kare one is specifically locked at this color group, but you can still edit it through edit mode in Proffie's workbench. Um, but so we come here and then we can pick any color we want. But this is what I wanted to show is Kyber Select now. So that was one of the big things, was that the Kyber Select previously in I'm sorry, phase 3 was a group of 9 styles that I pre-built. What I've done is I had so many people wanting to do different Kyber Select styles. So now I've made Kyber Select actually a color option. Now it is specific to styles. Certain styles actually can't run Kyber Select because of how they're built. So you do have to. So that one won't. The Kyber Select doesn't work in the build a style section that I was just showing. And that's on purpose, just because if some of the options that are in there actually don't play nice with it, they may in the future, but how they're currently built, they don't work well. But Kyber Select now is individual to each style. So you can actually choose Kyber Select here. And then Kyber Select lets you build up. If you haven't seen those videos, definitely check them out afterwards. But basically, the idea behind Kyber Select is choosing a group of up to 6 colors that you would pick before you ignite, and it's going to keep the style. But say you wanted to have, it's so that you could toggle between. I'm just going to go here, and these can do now custom. So that's, I'm able to pick custom colors if I wanted to everywhere. Let's grab a silver, and let's make a purple. It's kind of magenta-y. Let's get something a little more purpley. So now the idea with this Kyber Select is that before your first ignition, you can, and it's going to apply right now, it's going to apply to the Bandit Leader style. By turning your hilt, you're going to roll through the color options you have. So the idea is right before you ignite your blade, you're actually going to be able to pick the color you want to ignite it in. And that the concept behind it was almost kind of like the Galaxy's Edge, where people, pick the Kyber crystal and they stick it in the saber, and that's the color they get. I wanted to kind of play with it, but it actually has some cool uses outside of that. But that's the kind of concept, is just if you wanted to, if okay, I like this style, but I kind of like having different colors. That's where this comes in. It's really just, it's a fun feature. But it basically lets you pick your style right before you ignite just by turning your hilt. And then when you ignite, it locks that color in. And what happens now is this color gets locked in, and you'll see that previewer goes away. So that's a one-time deal every time you ignite. Now, when you change fonts or when you reboot, the color resets. So that's why this button's here. So if I change preset, it's going to reset. And then I can choose a different color just by twisting my hilt. And then you ignite, it locks in that color. And then again, that color is going to stay locked in every time I ignite until I change presets. And then changing presets will then reset the selection. But now Kyber Select is a color option in almost every style. If it doesn't appear, that means that that particular style right now, how it's built, it doesn't accept Kyber Select. There's a handful of them. A bunch of them are the original interactive stuff because of how they were built. But if you don't see Kyber Select in the dropdown, that's because it's technically currently not available for that specific style, but other styles will enable it. And then, of course, let's go. Sorry, I want to show a few more things. So then on top of that, so actually let's get, I think the AM is a good color. Let's preview AM. Let's ignite. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's got good motion. On top of that now, and this was shown in this was in the builder, but it's now for every single style. You can do all of those same. These are basically what I'm calling, these are color modifiers or color types. It's how you apply the color. So you can have a color shift, and color shift just moves between 2 colors. And how much of the shift is happening is controlled here. And then how fast it happens is controlled here. So you can do all kinds of unique things. So it's going to apply that style, but it's going to have this little color shifting. And some people don't like to go crazy with their colors, but if you wanted to have it so that it's a very tight color, just a little modification of color, you can tighten that up, and it'll still vary. So like I said earlier, sometimes even scene to scene in some of the films, the saber color changed just a little bit. If you want to really mess with it, you could actually do that now with this with color shifting. We've got the gradients, which I showed earlier. So, and again, you're going to pick your gradient amount here, and you can, go crazy with your gradients. And then on top of that, we've got style modifiers. So right now, these are the initial style modifiers I'm building. I have a bunch more coming. They take more time to build, but they will be getting added. So invert, what invert does, it obviously inverts. It's going to flip the whole style the other way. This works great, particularly if you had like a fire blade. If you want to have a reverse fire blade. So let's go reverse fire. Let's go to fire. Actually, we'll use the slow. So we've got fire blade. Oh, it's still applied the invert, or you can have it go normal. And it's got the gradient applied, or you can do mirror out, which then takes it from the center point. So you can make like your own kind of custom Sauron type effects, or hyperspace, or even the what was it, the seismic charge. They're kind of the same concept. For right now, I have these style modifiers are fixed, but I do have the blade angle movement, the twist angle movement, and the swing movement, and inertia. I have to just finish testing those, and those will get added. So this base modifier will be our style modifier will be growing quite a bit once I get the time to get the rest in. I wanted to get this launched, but then you have mirror in, which then takes it from the outside in. So you can do all this customization right here, right before you get your style built out. Um, let's go back to just a regular. And actually, that's a little slow. I want something with more activity on it. Let's go back up. Actually, I've added some new ones. I think they're down here. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where Power Wave and Power Ripple? I added the Power Wave and Power Ripple to kind of give a little bit. These are really good at mixing and matching in the builders. They're kind of generic, and they're just really just sped up different power effects. So they're kind of similar to like your energy effects, like the Death Star Blast and the Surging Pulse, but they're a little more generic in terms of just being able to mix and match better. So there's a high speed, a medium speed, a slow speed. There's erratic. Actually, I can show it. Uh, so there's erratic, a surging, and then there's this conical wave. This one's still. I think somebody saw the video. I posted these videos earlier. The conical concept is something I was playing with. It's not totally polished yet, so but I figured I'd throw it in. Basically, what conical does is it's going to shift the blade so that the bottom is a wider stripe and then the top is a tighter stripe. And this is using some of the style modifiers in the background, but it's not working perfect, so I got to tweak that one out. But it looked unique enough. I threw it in, but this one might get a facelift when I get a chance to play with it more. But actually, I wanted to go back to this. Actually, we'll choose a ripple. So you can build these out. Let's go into a normal gold blade. So then the other thing that I wanted to kind of show is that I've added a bunch more options, and I don't know if everybody's gotten to see them. But like I've added a new stack ignition, which actually looks better at a slower pace. And this is kind of this came out of the Atom Project one. But there's if you're in here, check all these drop downs because I've been adding a bunch of new stuff. And I don't get to do videos or announcements on all of it, but there's a lot of new options coming in here. And then also, like I said, so if we go like where are we? If we choose a ignition power up effect, let's choose an unstable. We can actually apply custom colors here. So every effect now can get a custom color. So for some kind of custom effect, let's see. So now to do the power up, you have to actually ignite, but you'll get your power up ignition in a unique color. So all of this stuff's growing too. And it's not, I don't get to do videos on every single thing that I do because at this point, I think we're getting towards 1 million possible combos if somebody wanted to sit down and do the math on everything in all these drop downs. And it's just going to keep growing. But as you're playing, just check everything out. There's a lot of new stuff coming in. So let me get with the chat, and then I was going to touch on the using function. I'll probably have to do another video, just me on the using function, but I'll touch on it a little bit. It's really just a simplification for your config. It doesn't save memory. It doesn't really change a lot. It's different how you use. But let me see what we got. Say, hey, Nick. Hey, Jacob, Alex. Okay, yeah. So yeah, the manual. I think. Oh, I said this earlier, but yeah, I'll get the manual. I'll take a peek at it and try to get it fixed. I got to do a little more work on the library tonight. I'm going. For those of you who joined late, this is launching tomorrow morning. The plan is when I get off the live video, finish it up and get it ready to go. And then just because my day starts extremely early. I turn in early after I get the kids tucked in. And I don't want to push the new site up and then be sleeping and have somebody say it's not working. So it'll be in the morning. It'll be going up, and I'll of course announce it everywhere. I'll link it in the description for this video. But it's running, as you can see, great. I beat it up pretty well. Everything is still beta just because I'm adding so much new stuff all the time. If you are using it tomorrow, anything comes up that doesn't work right, that's what this link up here in the top corner is for. Just report it in the thread and I'll take a peek at it. Um, but the concept for but the idea is everything is coming in the morning. Let's see. Yeah, I mean that the gradient stuff is going to be like, we've been so far up until now. The library's always there's been a couple gradient, like the real flame gradient and stuff like that, but I haven't played a lot of gradients because it's kind of a personal thing. But I do get a lot of. Oops, what happened? My mic went light. I think I lost the mic. Hang on one second. It said my mic went dark. Hopefully you guys still hear me. I don't know why I just got a notice that the mic went around. All right, I'm gonna hope that battery didn't die on this damn thing. But that being said, so yeah, the gradients are now something there, and the gradients are you choose how much the gradient's going to apply. It's all there's going to be, and there'll be more options. But you have a wave, so the gradient wave actually moves the gradient through up and down. This probably isn't a good style to show it. Let me get a more simplified style for showing. And I mean, it's really what you want. That's the thing is even with trying to demo everything, everybody's taste is so different um, that it's really going to come down to what each individual enjoys. Let me undo that stack one. It's cool for certain styles, but I don't love it for other styles. Let's just do our standard. So I kind of get stuck with our old-fashioned stuff. Let me turn off. So we can do, if you go into like the gradient wave, what it's going to do is it's actually going to move through the colors in a wave-like fashion. So you'll see this green is going to move up, the yellow is going to move back. So you can apply that. And again, everything speeds and everything are all settable, so you can have it moving much quicker. Again, you have your fixed gradients with the color going up, so the gradient goes this way. You have your gradient going down so that the gradient actually reverses itself. You can actually do gradient with a dim. So this would be like if you wanted to um, turn your NeoPixel Saber to look more like the old in-hilt LED, you can actually do a dimming gradient. So what it's going to do is it's going to set it brightest at the bottom, and then it's going to dim itself up top. And you can actually choose how much that dim happens. Oh, it's the other way around. Sorry. There you go. You want the number to be lower to get darker. If you raise it, it's going to go brighter. And then obviously all these other ones are in here. So Omni Color is going to go through every color. So it doesn't actually matter what your base color is. Omni Color just rotates through every possible color. It's just you can set your speed. And then as I said earlier, the color shifting is going to go between. So let's get a little bit of a difference here. Color shifting is going to move between two colors. And actually, it's better when you have a wider range. But then if you go rainbow shift is a different one. Rainbow shift will hit all the spectrum that exists between 2 points. So you'll get more colors mixed in there. But there's going to be it's really whatever your imagination comes up with. But that being said, let's see. So that was Nick. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the idea. Is definitely once this launches, I want everybody just go in and play. I mean, I mean, even as I said in some of the posts I put, you don't have to have a Proffieboard to come here and play with this stuff. And if you're curious, that's the other piece of it is if you're new to the world of custom sabers and you're trying to figure out what you want, or if you come across people online who are trying to who want to learn more about Proffie, you can shoot them over to the library and just tell them to play around with it. And that way they can actually see everything possible. And it really, more and more is getting added. Let's see. And then let's go. Oh, so the using, that's what I was sorry, I get sidetracked. Actually, let's go. We can leave it as this. Let's turn it to just a gradient up. So then the using function is something new. is essentially what you all using is it's just taking the style code and it's making it so that you can put it outside of the style and then use just a small clip. When you do using, it's going to try to generate a unique name. If you happen to just change a few features here, this name may not change. Every using has to have a unique name though. So if you love like this particular style, but you want to have a few variations of it, um, applying different things. Like I have it change what I can, but I didn't want this name to get kind of crazy long. So there's certain points where it'll get just to the point where it only has certain characters, but you're gonna want to edit this name. You don't want spaces, you don't want special characters, so it's just alphanumeric. But it needs to be unique for each one of these you create. And then all you're going to do is instead of clicking get style code, which is the old way, I'm going to click the using function. I changed the library. Oops, so the very first time you go to get style code or whatever, it's going to put up my copyright agreement. That's just saying, hey, I agree that I'm gonna, use this for Proffieboard and etc. And also, you're gonna keep the comment section, which has troubleshooting information, the copyright itself, plus all the effects that you've chosen in it. You only have to do it one time, and then every time you go forward, now it's actually going to get out of your way. So that was one of the things that people had been having some difficulty with. So I've made it at the tail end, and I've made it so it's only one time. So I got my using code. What we're going to do is go into our config. If you're not familiar with configs, I'm not going to do a video on configs right now. If you are familiar with the config, this is pretty straightforward. The using code is going to go within your config presets, but it has to go above your preset array, this is your preset array. So what you're going to do is put a couple lines in, and then we're just going to paste the using code. It's almost identical to the style code. So it's actually almost the same thing. The difference is it's not using style PTR. What you're going to do, the reason for this, and actually, it's however you want to use it, and you can mix and match. You can have a couple usings that you drop in different presets, and then you can still drop the style code in. But the idea here is, say I wanted to use this style code in a few different presets. And this would be particularly like if you have crystal chambers or accent LEDs where it ends up being the same style over and over again, or if you build large style options where you want the very similar style to be in each preset, but then you're going to change the options, etc. What you want to do is, this is the using, it goes outside the preset array. In order to add this style to a preset, it's just this group of code. So just the style PTR up to your closing brackets. We'll just copy that. And then what I'll do, I have a preset already in place, but I'm going to make a new one just for our purposes. So I'm going to copy because I know that font. It helps if I can type straight. And then I do have OS 6, so I do my common folder. And I'm going to just do the same track as I have below. And again, I'm flying through this on purpose. There's more information on how to set your config up in a lot of other places. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just paste the using code. So this is all that has to get pasted in this particular preset. And I happen to have two blades on this style. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back. I'm going to build a crystal chamber code. And I'm going to take, I'm going to build a couple options into my crystal chamber. And again, I'm just doing this fast for demo purposes. And then I'm going to get using code for that. And I'm going to go back into my config. And the using code always goes above the preset. So I added these line breaks just to make it easy for you to see. So we'll paste the other using code here. And now this is going to be my crystal using. Oops. Mouse is acting up on me, so I can copy this. So this will be my second code. So now what I've got, and then we'll, just for purposes to make sure that we keep track of everything, we're going to put the name in at the end within here. And again, you can look up from the manual on how to do the actual presets. But now, instead of having all this code like we do here, so like if you see here, this is all the style code. So this is the style code for blade 1, and then this is the style code for the crystal chamber, which is blade 2. You can actually simplify it within the presets. It's still all the code has to be there. It's just where you're putting it. That's really all the using is it's just letting you consolidate. But say that because I built this as an option, and this particular crystal chamber has 3 unit combinations. You could build thousands if you wanted, but it's got 3 combinations. So say I wanted to use this exact same code in 3 spots, I can replace this larger section of style code with just that using. And then again, we'll do preset 2, just because it's good common practice. And so I can use it there. And then what I would do is either in edit mode or Proffieboard Workbench, I can go and toggle the option if I wanted this to be different. And then again, I can do the same thing here. So I can actually consolidate down. Oops, we'll just paste it over the top. And again, I'll do this because Frederick said we should show this the correct way for everybody. But so that's the idea of it. And you can mix and match. So you are not, if you decide you want to do a couple usings, and then you want to just have everything else be the old way with just style code, you can do that. If you just want to go straight style code, you could do that. If you just want to go using, you can do that. It all technically ends up being the same end result when you upload the config. The concept behind the using, which was Frederick's suggestion for the library, is really just to consolidate. And it comes into play mostly with those large option styles. If you build a bunch of options into a style and you want to use it in a lot of presets, that ends up being a lot of extra code. You can actually simplify it by putting the using in place and then just applying just this style PTR code with the using function name. As I did note, this name here that you generate from the library. So when we generate on the library, this name has to be unique. So if I made just a subtle change to this, but the name didn't change, you'd want to give it like a number, or you can name this anything you want. So if you have other naming functions, the reason the library is generating that is it's taking what you've selected and trying to smush it together into some kind of function name. It's going to make it long. If you want to make them more simple or give them more meaning in terms of what you want it to be called, you can do that. That's the reason this is editable. You can't have spaces because it's a function, but so I could just name it my, favorite, helps if I type straight, style for Cal. You can name it whatever you want. Whatever name you put in this box before you hit the using function, that's the name of the function that's going to be when you generate. And then that's the name that you're going to drop into your style PTR in each preset. But I'll do a little bit more in-depth video on that, probably just separate and post it when I get a chance. And there is the style library thread. I did talk about it a little bit. So if you there's a thread on the Crucible, but if you go in here and ask questions, if you have questions about it, but the using is it's a new option. It doesn't, it saves space in your config if you're reusing the same style, but it doesn't affect how memory applies because the style code's still going into your board. So it's not like you have to switch everything over to using. It's just an option for those of you who want to do it. But let me catch back up with my chat here. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining us. Sorry. Oh, cool. Hey, man, good news. Yeah, I mean, I have so much fun with Proffie. I'm not familiar with Xeno. I'm not familiar. Really, I mean, I know the names of these other boards. I don't know much about them. But if you're able to get more enjoyment out of the Proffieboard, man, that's all good. And these tools are here for everybody. And like I said, even if somebody doesn't have a Proffieboard, so if you got friends who they have their favorite board or they're just starting out in the Saber world and they want to learn, they are going to, you can tell them to come to the library and just play around and build stuff. And again, I only touched on it briefly. I make the assumption that people have used this before. All of this stuff is, you can test everything. So you can test your clash effects, your blast effects, how lockup works. All this stuff is you can play with in here. Plus, there's certain effects that are going to apply to blade angle, twist angle, swing speed, clash strength, if you set a battery level. So all of this is controllable. Plus, there's separate videos on this, but you can actually load up fonts, test fonts, everything. So for anybody who's brand new to the library, there's a lot of stuff to play with in here. And it just gives you an opportunity. Let's see. Hey, Nick. Let me see. So we have room for, give us more room. The style code is the style code. The using function essentially just consolidates it into it's basically shorthand. That's all it is. It's actually the actual style code is whatever it is. So say you built out 15 really large styles and that's all you can fit. If you built out 15 really large usings and they're roughly equivalent, it's essentially almost the same amount of memory. There might be a couple bits different because now you're adding the name of the function. Um, but actually, I don't even think I saw any byte difference when I did my tests. But they're interchangeable, and it's not for memory saving. It's really more for consolidation in your config. It's really just making your presets a little cleaner looking. So like if I look here, this is one preset. It's got all this information. Instead, if I like having my preset look like this, that's really what it comes down to. But the space being taken up on your board is based on the styles themselves. That code is identical whether you pick it as a using or style code. It's really just more placement. And this has come up a bunch of times. This section here, this grayed out section, this copyright section that gets appended. Oops, I got your chat. You're chatting away. So this whole section here, this serves multiple purposes, particularly for OS 6. First of all, it obviously does carry my copyright. I've said this before. There's a couple instances in recent history, people trying to pass off stuff that I know is mine as their own, and in some cases trying to get some money for it or whatever. So I had to copyright everything. Frederick actually recommended that. But then it also has a way to get back to it. So if you build a style, it gives you the link to get back to it in case you want to share it with others. It also has debugging information. So it's going to have this is an old one, but it's going to have the information about from the library when it came, et cetera, so that I can help you debug. And then it's going to also let you know how many combos you built. And this is for the purposes of reusing within the presets. And then it's got when you use edit mode or when you use the workbench, these are related to the actual menu itself. So it's going to let you know what the default. So when you choose on behavior, or style option 0, style option 1, style option 2 is here. If I built out more options, it would list them out. So the idea of this comment section is to make everything of record of everything you've built so that you can use it properly. It takes up no additional room. That was something that I think some people were confused about because they saw all this, in some cases, all this extra text. Anything within these, this opening and this closing is a comment. It's ignored by Arduino when it uploads to your board. So those are going to get, this section here is purposefully broken out to give you a ton of info, both for usage, but also for troubleshooting and also for future reference. It doesn't affect memory. So I had some people who had been pulling this stuff out, and in some cases they were cutting it out, and they were cutting out stuff that was important, and they were afraid that their config was too big. The lengthier config is a lengthier config. This code here does this comment doesn't affect memory in any way. It's completely ignored by the OS. It's really just for you as the user. So leave this in place. That's actually part of the agreement that I throw up on when you go to get the code, is that you're going to leave the copyright in place. And I mean, if you wanted to technically just drop the copyright only, okay, fine, you met what you needed. But then when you go to use those options in the future, unless you remember what was 0, 1, 2, et cetera, and if you build the large things, you're going to end up getting lost. So it's easier to just keep it there. But the long story short, the usings aren't going to save you any extra memory. They're just going to help you clean up your config if you want. And it's an optional thing that Frederick made a suggestion about. It's really however you want to go forward with it. But it is there and it does work. And for certain people who like to have their presets really concise and easy to understand, it's helpful. Let's see. Get back here. Let me see who else is in the chat. Jacob. So yes, actually, this was in one of my early development plans, and it got messy so fast that it got shelved. I might circle back to it. The biggest difficulty becomes in order for it to work effectively for all types of users, I'd have to gather a ton of info from you. So I'd have to understand how many blades you put in, what are the blade types. I'd have to know the font names. I'd have to know the tracks. I'd have to. So for it to generate that info, actually was going to be a really large interface for the user to put the info in. But then because I wouldn't want it to generate something that didn't work properly, I'd also have to build a bunch of checks on the back of it. So it snowballed so quickly. It was an original idea when I first started the original alpha of this library that it got so out of hand where because I didn't want to just throw something up that wouldn't help everybody, because there's a wide range of people. So and technically the people who would benefit most from it also need the most hand holding. So it got too messy. It's not saying I can't get back to it, but I have so much else I've been working on that I think just helps better. But it was something I had considered. As of right now, it's sitting on a back shelf in my mind. But it just yeah, it was definitely it was on the original plans, and then it just got a little bit messy for me to be able to make it work properly, particularly for the people who benefit. So like the people who know how to build their configs easily wouldn't need a preset builder. But in order to use it properly, you had to understand how the config was set up, which then meant you would have had to come to the library with the knowledge to set up the config and preset correctly to use the preset builder, which then means it's not really helping anybody. But if I can get it to work to where it would work for the people who are brand new, who haven't done it before, and be able to get the information for them to correctly put it out, it was something I was looking at, but it's not on the horizon, but never say never. Let's see. Yeah, there's still a lot of people. I don't know if Brian's still on. There's still a lot of people who like to build their own styles. So that's all well and good. I enjoy designing styles. I have a ton of. Part of my enjoyment out of the hobby is just thinking of something that nobody's thought up before, and then being able to share that. So I'm always my mind. Actually, I still have no joke. I probably have thousands of ideas bouncing around my head that different points of the day. I see something on TV. I see a YouTube video somewhere. I watch a movie. I get an idea. Hey, that'd be great as this style. Or hey, how about if we did this? So the library gives is a way for me to put that out, and a lot of people use it, but it's not, you know, the, even though now, we're in the millions of unique stuff you can generate with the library. That's still not the end of it. There's still probably going to be combinations of stuff that I haven't thought of yet that people are going to come up with, or ideas that are going to be, somebody's going to say, hey, how about if we tried this? And OS 7 is probably not even that far away. There's probably more stuff coming. But if for anybody who doesn't want to bother, or just really enjoys the stuff that I'm making, that's the idea. Library is quick, easy. Although now, and I apologize to everybody, you could play in the sucker for hours and hours and hours and still not even hit all the things that are in there, just because of everything that's been built out. So if you lose a day or two, just coming up with cool styles, yes, I'm sorry, but I'm making it so that you can do more and more without having to actually go and do the code. But the Frederick's editor, it still works great for those of you who want to build it out. You just have to have a little more knowledge to use the editor, because you have to understand what those styles do. The idea for the library, particularly with these new interfaces, is I give it a little bit of a shorthand, so that you can understand it a little more how I would understand it, versus a function name that sometimes doesn't even make sense to everybody. Let's see. Hey, Brian. I didn't know if you're still on. Let's see. Uh, how many pixels placement on the blade for things like that? You can, everything is in there already. So technically all styles for Proffie OS auto size themselves to your blade length. And because blade length is now editable through OS 6, if you edit the blade length, it auto adjusts. So all of the styles automatically apply. So because of that, um, you you don't want a fixed number, because say that I happen to design a style and I put a fixed number in of the say I put a fixed number of like 15, but then I cut my saber down to, obviously your blades are longer than 15, but whatever, and then you change it, it's going to mess everything up. So the styles themselves, they carry it. It's based on a 32,768. I forget the mathematical term for that, but it is a percentage, because it has to auto size. So and again, I've covered this in some other videos. Even here, these are just preview numbers. So I preview it at 130 pixels. That's just an approximation for how this displays. This is roughly how it would look on this length. If you have 130 pixels, the style is going to auto size to 130 pixels. If you have, if you have, in this case, so if I say I change it to a side blade, it's just changing the animation to be over that period of the pixels, just so you can get a preview of it. And it's not a perfect thing because obviously the resolution of your screen is going to be different. But every single style you design for Proffie OS will always auto size to the exact blade length that you actually have in your config, or if you use the edit blade length feature, whatever that edited blade length is. So it's not like because I had some people say, hey, my Saber isn't 132 pixels. What do I need to do? You don't need to do anything. The OS does that. The OS automatically sizes your styles. Now, if you have your blade length set wrong, then things like drag and melt and those type of effects won't show properly. But that's because you're telling the OS that your Saber's longer than it is. All you got to do is fix that blade length number, and then it'll automatically fix itself. Um, let's see. Let me catch up. Yeah, so Sean, that's the variable blade length is built into the OS. That's actually the style code doesn't even have to worry about it. Um, yeah, so what Mountain Saber is talking about is the editing, blade length editing, which is also part of OS 6. And you can do that again through the workbench or if you have edit mode enabled. And the idea there is you can actually edit the blade length on the fly. Sometimes the idea on that was, so I try to keep all my blades the same length, but every once in a while I throw an extra pixel or two because the hilt is smaller or larger. And then you stick it in and you're like, oh man, I got to upload a new config for a different blade length. Well, now just edit it on the fly. And you can also the way it works, if you use edit mode, it actually speaks the pixel numbers. So if you're unsure of your pixel length, you can actually use that feature. The edit blade length will edit the blade length, but also tell you what the blade length is. So edit mode allows for that to be possible. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I spent when I first got started. Now it's several years. When I very first started Proffie, um, I was actually on the regular. I was on the original run that Frederick did on TRA, where he did his very first release of the Proffieboard, and I think I bought 5 or 6 of them. But Megtooth Sith Tom turned me on to the style editor, and that was probably it was the greatest thing ever. But it also was like the largest time suck of my life because I just got sucked into that, and that's basically how I got to this point. Was I was just like, oh, I can change this and I can change that and I can change that. And I had a good enough grasp of syntax to use it. But then now what I wanted to do is take that concept of being syntax based and move it more to this type of a interface where you can build in a library. But however you play with these styles, I mean, that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't even get to take advantage of. And hopefully more now with the library is that, yeah, you can grab a style or you can have your style preloaded by your installer or whatever. But the part of the fun is coming up with your own ideas. And, you know, I'm trying to make the library so that more and more people can do those custom things. If you're used to using the style editor and you want to go down that path and build your own things, that's totally cool. If you still want to grab this style code and put it into the editor and make changes, the only thing I do ask is that if it's my code that you're basing everything on, just keep that copyright there, just in your config. It's just more out of protecting, the styles I've designed. Unfortunately, there's players in the community that are, what are we going to do? But that's part of the fun is the hours you can spend coming up with unique things and custom things, and then ultimately getting them onto your Saber and actually seeing how they look. Because that's the other piece of this. Sometimes some stuff here might look really cool, and then you put it on your Saber and it's not so much, and vice versa. Sometimes stuff here doesn't look quite so great, but then you move it over to the actual Saber and it looks awesome. So even the previewer, this is an emulation. It's meant to be a rough idea of what the style will look like. Definitely test everything on your real blade because I've had it both ways. I've had styles that I'm like, on paper it sounds like it looked good. The preview doesn't look so good. I put it on Saber and I'm like, man, that's exactly what I want. And then I've had the other thing where I've designed it and it looks great in the editor, it looks great in the library on the preview, and I put it on the Saber. I'm like, man, that's really underwhelming. So ultimately, if you have a Proffieboard, you want to get this style over to the Saber and test it on the Saber itself. But the previewer helps with like leaps and bounds with getting there. Um, let's see. I'm trying to catch up with everybody's comments. Jacob, where was Jacob's original question? So essentially go quickly paste into the INI file. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So I'm guessing you mean presets INI. The presets INI uses numerics. So it's going to use the numerical value for the blade, the numerical value for the style. So it's got the built-in prefix, and then it's like built-in 0, 1, and then a bunch of numbers. That's a little different. I still have to do the write-up on editing presets INI for OS 6 by hand. It's not hard, but there's so many new variables that I just haven't had a chance to document it. But you can edit the INI by hand. But in all honesty, even without edit mode's menu, the workbench makes it so easy that it really hasn't been kind of a pressing thing. But you can technically go in and edit the INI file however you want. I would say, I mean, short term, the easiest thing would be, enable web USB. Obviously, you need the OS 6 styles, but then put one in, hook up to the web USB, the workbench, make a couple of edits, and then go check your presets INI file, and it's going to have the syntax in there. And then you can, kind of pick and choose from there. I will try to get that. I'm going to try to do update the wiki page on the presets INI. I've just been juggling so much, and again, there's probably only a handful of people who would even try to edit that by hand, but it's totally doable. It's really just knowing the syntax for it. But the, between edit mode and the workbench, it was so easy with those two tools that it kind of really wasn't a high. It wasn't high on the priority for getting it documented. But yeah, I mean, it's totally possible. Let's see. I'll take a couple more questions if anybody has them. Otherwise, we're probably going to wrap up. And like I said, anybody who joined late, this will be launching tomorrow morning, phase 4. It's been in beta since because I'm adding new stuff all the time, but it'll launch tomorrow morning. I will blast it everywhere. I'll put the link in the description to it. Go in and play. If you run into anything, that's what the beta page on the Crucible is for, so we can document anything that pops up. So if you have questions, so it's not just problems. Like if you are trying to do something and you haven't found the answer, because again, even with tonight being an hour and last week being a half an hour, I've probably only touched like 10% of the new stuff that's in there. It's just so much. It's actually because of how the library's been evolving, it's actually easier for me to add new features than it is for me to explain them. So as I've developed new features, I've been adding them to the library. But I haven't had the time to actually go back and say, oh, hey, this is here, and hey, that's there, and hey, this is here. That's the that'll be I'll catch up with them eventually. Let's see. Are those variables something the library could generate? The library can't. Well, the library technically does generate them. It's just it's not applying them. So how can we show that? I don't have an easy way to show that, unfortunately. So yeah, without documenting, it's tough to show. It essentially the variables, they technically exist in GitHub. So maybe as a start point, I can show you that. Oops. I'm having a hard time typing tonight. All right, so your variables are in here. So these are your variables that exist. So this is edit mode's arguments, essentially. Would be your variables that allow you to control stuff. So what ends up happening is these are the locations that these variables exist within the INI. This might actually confuse you more now I think about it. I need to it's hard to explain without it being fully documented. And I don't have my SD card loaded up. Um, yeah, I'll see if I can get a chance soon to actually write it up. Um, yeah, it's not complicated, but it's also not easy to show. So I probably just need, so in the wiki is the presets INI by hand, right? So this is what it looks like, right? So this is your preset. What ends up happening is if you use the edit mode, um, or you use the workbench, it's going to generate this. And then what's going to happen is it's going to put a bunch of numbers or the tilde sign or other stuff. Those are all place values for the variables. And then what each one takes is the other piece of the puzzle because you can't put, yeah, I have to write it up. I'm sorry. I thought I could explain it, but I think I'll end up confusing everybody more if I explain this wrong, and then people have all kinds of problems. I'll see when I can get it written up. Right now, easiest solution: use the workbench or use edit mode, and it does it all for you. Sorry, as I was trying to think about how to show it, I realized this is not the easiest thing to show right now. Let's go back here. All right. Hey, Brian. Oh, thanks, Nick. You might have logged off already, but yeah, actually, I'm gonna probably cut off too. But thanks everybody for joining. Like I said, tomorrow morning, gonna go live. I'm gonna put it everywhere for you guys to go in and play around with it, come up with whatever you want. Like I said, there's infinite possibilities in there. Play with stuff. If you have questions, post them. I'll try to answer. I'll see about the I stuff when I get a chance. I got other stuff to do, but we'll try to write that up. But really, just let's see what you guys come up with. There's a ton of new tools in the library for you guys to really go to town, come up with unique styles, etc. And there's more coming. But thanks everybody. If I didn't get to call you out by name, or if you had a question I missed earlier, I do apologize. If you want to post it in the beta thread too, because this is technically a library discussion, I can try to answer it there. I don't know when my next live video will be. I do have some vacation coming up. I do have a lot more stuff in the works, so there'll be more added over time. So the libraries, every time you go to the library, just look for the new stuff. When it's something big, I'll do announcements. But like I said, I've been adding stuff throughout that I don't always document. Some of it's kind of Easter eggy, so you can go find it on your own. Some of it's I just forgot I put it in there. But thanks so much, and thanks again, all my patrons who've been helping me really, particularly being able to get this site actually on its own server, be able to do this more complex type stuff. I do appreciate everybody there, and keep an eye out. It's coming tomorrow. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night.